Welcome to Monarchist Minute. I'm your host, William Stout, along with Vice Chancellor Clemens Magnolia, coaching the Undying, and Water Cube. We have a list of topics tonight coming from the abdication of Queen Margrethe II of Denmark to the release of the Epstein files. We hope you enjoy this episode. And without further ado, let's begin. How is everyone this evening?
I'm doing all right.
I'm doing good.
Excellent. So, what do y'all guys know about Queen Margaret's abdication?
She announced that she'd be doing it during her New Year's speech, right?
Yes. Early, I can't remember if it was late New Year's Eve or early New Year's Day.
I think it would have been early New Year's Day for them, because I believe I saw it late New Year's Eve.
Yeah, it would have been New Year's Day, I think. I remember a Danish friend telling me about it.
And, there's a big question, especially in our circles, that involves this, is that should monarchs have the right to abdicate? Because traditionally, a monarch is supposed to reign till death.
Did you want to just jump in? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, wait, what did you have to say?
I was just going to ask if you wanted to just jump into that right now, or if you were sort of still setting stuff up in terms of saying that, you know what I mean?
I was kind of waiting to see if anyone here had any comments on it.
Okay. I'm not sure if I've voiced it on the podcast before, but I have been a proponent for older monarchs abdicating. I think something people need to. I think something monarchists need to sort of accept is that people are living longer now, especially those who are wealthier. Which you can see how that you can see the through line there. And, of course, at the same time, historically, monarchs, along with the rest of the nobility, essentially were often a sort of dedicated military class.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that's not a role they fulfill anymore. So, again, going to live longer. So, while traditionally a monarch, while generally in most societies, a monarch probably would have reigned until death. I think this is something where the circumstances of the time need to be taken into account. In my opinion, a monarch should generally be able to there should be like a certain air of vitality around them, if that makes sense. And certainly, I think if you're at a point where I think Queen Elizabeth is actually a pretty good example of this. I think if you're at the point where when the monarch is gone and their heir takes the throne, if the heir is old when they take the throne, the previous monarch probably should have already abdicated by that point. Like, I think that's probably too much.
Yeah, and I agree with your opinion. I mean, if I remember correctly, Margrethe of Denmark ruled for 52 years, and if we consider back when monarchies were the most common form of government, that was about the average lifespan of most people. So the idea of her basically living the reigning the average lifespan of what one of her ancestors would have just lived is insane.
Now, to be fair, I don't mean to hog the conversation, but I think that what you just said, average lifespan, and at the same time, to be fair, I kind of brought that up too. But I think that there is an important point there that has to be acknowledged, which is that one of the biggest things contributing to the lower average lifespan of history was childhood deaths.
That is true. That is
infant
true.
mortality, specifically.
If I remember correctly, I remember reading this somewhere that if you made it past 30, your chance of living well into your 50s and 60s rose drastically.
Yes, but infant mortality. I don't even think it was till your 30s. Although that there might still have been something to that because obviously armed conflict was more common back then. At least major armed conflict that what would at the time have been considered a developed country would be participating in. Yeah, so that would have been the biggest factor. But I think I haven't read specifically in the literature, but my sort of gut instinct is that it's probably the case still that, especially for somebody in the position of a monarch, with modern advances in technology and the resources they're going to have access to, even when you take infant mortality rates out of the equation, they're still going to be living a fair bit longer on average than was historical.
Right.
One thing I also want to jump in on is that vitality that you mentioned. Like, a monarch is the representation, like, not always spiritually, but just as like the metaphysical nature of the nation. I'm trying to figure out what the hell I'm saying. I'm sorry, but like that spirit of the nation. Yeah, like and when like
spiritually is probably somewhat of a good word, not necessarily in a religious sense, but like yeah.
The essence of the nation. That's what I'm looking for. The monarch represents kind of that essence of a nation state and its culture. It's like, and as they get older, they're actually more representing like an older culture than what the culture is now as well.
I mean, yeah, I guess I'm not necessarily sure I would take that line of logic.
Well, it's like not in all cases. Like, I know the King of Sweden is loved because he tends to have fairly like modernist opinions. Like,
well, no, it's sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Most of this like is like what's the word? I don't remember. Like, most of this from Swedish people that I talk to about their monarchy out of curiosity on why they like their king. And most of them are like anti-monarchist in other countries, but they're pro-monarchy at home because they just like the guy.
If I remember correctly, the big thing with Scandinavian monarchies, and this includes Norway and Denmark as well as Sweden, is they're commonly referred to as the bicycle monarchies, and it has more to do with the fact that their monarchs are really approachable and down to earth. The pomp and circumstance isn't getting in the way like it does in, say, the UK.
Fair. I mean, that's been a somewhat of a dividing line between types of monarchies historically as well.
Right.
Not to move too far off topic, but that was actually a that sort of a concept is mentioned in the histories of Alexander the Great, because the Macedonian kings tended to be much more approachable than the monarchs in the East, and if I recall correctly, the historical writing mentions his some of his soldiers getting annoyed with him because he started taking on more of the air of the more august, I guess you could say, although the term wouldn't have been applicable at the time, Eastern monarchs, and became significantly less approachable, which they were upset about.
I'm sorry for cutting you off, Coach.
Well, so again, I don't mean to dominate the conversation, but to go to sort of say that what I was initially thinking regarding the Swedish thing, or rather the older, representing an older culture thing, my hesitance with that analogy or that concept comes more from a place of me being a conservative, and so I'm not necessarily like a fan of that the kind of thinking of like, yes, we should always be looking to the younger generation, because I mean, the younger generation don't know anything.
Well, I more mean the relatability for the younger generation to the monarchy compared to the monarchy relating to the youth, if that makes sense. where it's about
I think I understand that.
A younger face is easier for someone younger to relate to, which tends to strengthen the legitimacy in like a lot of people's eyes. When, especially now, even constitutional monarchies are being challenged.
Sure. Okay.
And
I can see that.
And that reminds me of one of the big topics of when Queen Elizabeth, back when she was still alive, but we knew that her days were numbered, is people were talking about, it's like, should succession just skip Prince Charles and go straight to William because of, one, he was significantly younger, and two, he was far more popular than his father. And personally, I'm not for that because that wouldn't be fair to Charles, but I understand the reasoning.
I also agree that doing that, just outright doing that, does feel a bit arbitrary. But I'm not necessarily, particularly because that's just not how succession is done regarding the British throne. But I do think establishing from the outset a system that is a bit more flexible regarding inheritance is probably a good idea. If that makes sense, if like my position there makes sense, like.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I think Britain has one of the better succession systems, especially in the 21st century. And it's definitely working better for them than the current Japanese succession system, which is panicking because they're running out of male heirs and they refuse to accept a
that's
female line.
I'll be honest, they're probably just gonna have to accept that. Like,
yeah, it's funny how it kind of also correlates to the fact that the Japanese population is on a massive decline right now, and that's kind of why one of the major things the monarch should also be like an example. Like, I know this is another topic, which I want to point out that the monarch should be an example and have at least a fair amount of children. Like, even in some monarchies that don't even exist right now, the heirs apparent still do have, like in Germany, the heir to Germany has 4 kids. The heir to I think Greece, he's like 4 kids. Like, they actually have children. And that's important. The monarch should be an example, and the example should be have children, secure the succession.
Well, it helps that a lot of these families are also still very well off, and they can actually afford to have these large families.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, but I disagree with that argument completely. The argument falls completely flat when you actually look at poor countries in the world. Because the poor countries in the world have higher birth rates than the richer countries.
Yeah, but they also have a higher child mortality rate. Keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, and also they also look at children as sources of labor rather than members of their family. So,
well, I'll be honest, it's both. Like, no. I mean, not they look at them as no. It is both. Like, this is something that modern first world countries. This is something like. Culturally, we need to change. We have essentially gone into this system where we essentially just abandon our elderly. Older people should be looked after by their families, and we don't do that. And that's one of the reasons why people should have children, is so that they have somebody to look after them. And yes, we should have resources and systems in place so that older people who wind up not having them aren't just thrown onto the streets or something or left to themselves. But that shouldn't be the default for old people. The default should be that they are looked after by their families.
I mean, I don't disagree with you, actually. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree, and I think there really is a lot of tragedy going on in the 21st century involving the elderly, particularly in the U.S., and basically they're not only the lack of good care they're getting, but also the lack of infrastructure facilitating their independence so that they can still act on their own.
And at the same time, there is a certain level on which that translates into a macro level of society in general, which is why I agree kind of with the idea that monarchs should be sort of a sorry, what was the term? I don't remember the term used, but should be setting an example, I guess, of, you should have kids. To some extent, society, especially now that we have things like Social Security. I mean, I know other countries don't. I know that's specifically a U.S. thing, but like other countries have similar systems, probably.
ones that work significantly better than ours. Yes.
It's at least in the U.S., it's kind of a Ponzi scheme. Like,
it's the national Ponzi scheme.
Yeah. So, like,
100% fits the definition.
But even beyond that, like, society in and of itself, on some level, is sort of a Ponzi scheme in a way. Like, you need to keep having new people to uphold society.
That's the problem. Is that our system is currently. Oh, yeah, sorry, Coach.
There's a level of on which people sort of have a duty to continue the society. I mean, so Ponzi scheme doesn't really. It's not really the best descriptor here.
I mean, yeah, it's not.
But people have a duty to continue the society.
Yeah, because of course, the current Social Security system is based off of, as long as the population either stays steady or increases, it'll be fine. But if the population begins to decrease and there aren't as many people working, then we're going to start running out of money. And that's something that politicians have even begun starting to talk about, is the fact that we're beginning to run out of money for Social Security, to which then their opponents, be Democrat or Republican, immediately
it's like political suicide to actually seriously go into that in a as a politician, because the idea of, well, we need to get rid of Social Security, nobody wants that.
Yeah, nobody wants to.
Right. But that's what I mean. It's like,
want to do this.
It's an issue. That's my point. Is like, no politician wants to get into that because it's political suicide. So it's not going to be easy to fix the problem.
And of course, if I may, say the other main problem, of course, is inflation being the tax on savings. It's also continuously putting burden, because as people pay into Social Security over 30 years, the value of what they pay in becomes increasingly less. Also, Frederick, hello, how are you?
Yeah, so, hi, I'm back, finally.
But, anyway, my main, I'm not jumping back on it too fast after Frederick joining.
Yeah, so you guys were talking about inflation? Price of meat is...
We were.
Price of meat is.
I was actually going to go back to the society and having kids thing.
Right.
Basically, even outside the specific of Social Security, like, so there's a term I've heard of. It's from a book, I think, called The Great Chain of Civilization, which is essentially that we are the inheritors of, like, an entire social lineage. And to some extent, because of that, we have a duty to continue that society, because, especially because for us, it's a good society overall compared to, like, I mean, yes, especially in the modern day, don't get me wrong, especially in the modern day, there's been some stuff going on that's not great, but, like, a bunch of stuff about it is, like, generally not too bad.
Yeah.
And, like, so, there's a degree to which we have a responsibility to continue it going, and like, importing a bunch of people from other places, other societies with completely different values and beliefs and all that doesn't count. Like, that's not the same thing, It's
more to keep the economy running than actually, like, preserve the society.
That's all that.
It's all about the economy at the end of the day.
Hold on. To quote one liberal white lady from the UK, if we start all these immigrants coming in, who will be serving our coffee and Pret?
Yeah, exactly.
Was that a Margrethe II impersonation?
No, that was some like really dumb lady.
No, that was not her.
This is my Margaret Thatcher impersonation.
Spitting in it.
I think the woman who was talking about coffee and Pret wasn't even, like, anybody important.
Yeah, she was just on the show.
Wait. Let's say, like, that one prime minister that fucking decided to quit after just a few days.
No, this was it's literally just someone,
some random lady.
Yeah. It's coffee and Pret is basically like the British equivalent of, like, well, we need all the immigrants from Latin America, because otherwise who will, like, grow the avocados or whatever.
And also in the States, they're talking about letting illegal immigrants join the army, which
that's always been allowed. Like you can actually get citizenship since like the early 2000s
in my
because
opinion,
of
I think
service.
that's a bad idea.
Well, we've been doing it for a while.
Opinion, it's just a matter of is it happening. I think what you're referring to is in California they said that they're going to be giving free healthcare to illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
I mean, I think everyone in the U.S. should get. I think everyone in the U.S. should get free healthcare. But anyway,
I think healthcare. I don't think healthcare should be necessarily free. I think it should be more affordable.
Definitely.
I don't know enough about healthcare to have opinions beyond the fact that, like, I know that people come from countries that have nationalized healthcare to go to the U.S. to get healthcare of a better quality. So
yeah,
it's about.
And I know that the Canadian healthcare system is literally telling people to kill themselves. So
yeah,
yeah, like most socialized healthcare under like capitalism is still going to put profits and funny number go up compared to the actual well-being of the patients that they're like entrusted to take care of.
Yeah, just like Pfizer and Epiderma with their fucking vaccines.
Now the British national healthcare system, the problem is that the problem is just the waiting times. They're abysmal. You wait forever to do anything, apparently. So as far as I've heard from actual British people.
Anyway, to get back to the topic of Queen Margaret, what do we think about the fact that they're not having a coronation ceremony, a proper coronation ceremony?
Oh, really? I hadn't heard this.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah, I believe she abdicated, I think. Wait.
Right, that's what we started the episode with.
Yeah.
But yeah, apparently King Frederick X is going to ascend without coronation.
Kind of weird.
Yeah, apparently this is a normal thing, particularly in Scandinavia.
I'm sorry, it's a normal thing for them?
Yeah, apparently the UK is the only country in Europe, last I checked, that actually has a proper coronation ceremony.
Okay. Well, I mean, if it's not traditional for them to do it, then I guess it's not traditional for them to do it.
I don't think it's not a matter of tradition, it's just the fact that they don't do it.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the same thing.
Right.
I mean, I guess it depends on, like, did they used to do it and then they stopped doing it recently? But, like, I mean, you get what I mean.
I mean, it's unless they Margaret ruled for 52 years. I don't know if Margaret had one. I don't think Margaret had one.
I mean, look, if they don't do it, they don't do it. And, like, I'm not
they save money on the state budget.
It's different if, like, it's traditional, if they've always done it, and then for some reason this time they're not, versus apparently they just don't do it. Like, that's different, you know what I mean?
Frederick, what were you saying?
Unless, they're trying to save money on the state budget, because they don't want to spend shit that's not necessary. But,
I don't know. Like, I know the British monarchy pays for itself. I would assume that that's probably the case with Denmark, too.
Unless, they just want it to be quick and, not,
Right. I don't actually understand what the Danish ascension procedure is, but I'm guessing it probably involves a public appearance and a speech and all that mumbo jumbo we usually expect from important world leaders.
Right.
Next, we are moving on to the. Well, does anyone have any final remarks on the
Oh yeah, I do actually.
Apparently, they haven't done coronations since 1849.
Oh wow!
Which is when the switch was made to a constitutional monarchy.
Also, today is also Insurrection Day, if you get what I mean.
Well, this is still on the Danish monarchy. Apparently, they only cost 13 million euros I think a year.
13 million? That is really nice.
And they pay inheritance tax and property tax.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, well, I guess that explains why they're still very popular amongst the progressive aspects of Denmark.
Yeah.
I mean, inheritance tax is awful in my opinion, but the monarchy should still pay taxes.
I don't agree with inheritance tax too, because I consider it double taxation because you're taxing income that's already earned.
Exactly. Everything in an inheritance has already been taxed at some point.
Right.
As someone going through an inheritance tax situation, it sucks. It sucks so much. I hate it.
Especially if you have family members that are wanting to get a slice of that money.
I don't.
You're inheriting your beloved grandpa's prized estate, and now the government's taking 40% of it.
Yeah, the whole taxation and theft thing is kind of a meme, but nah, when it comes to inheritance tax, that's actually pretty much
theft. Yeah, that's definitely theft.
Yeah. It's not good.
Yeah, we can agree with the libertarians on that one.
Well, it's a death tax at the end of the day. Inheritance tax serves, I understand the purpose that they implemented it for, but half the time, again, double taxing.
Yeah. No, it's just double tax. It's either double taxing or it's just objecting to the idea that somebody who is successful can set up their kids to have a better
life.
Yeah.
If you inherit mostly stock, by the way, if you liquidate that stock, it still has to be taxed under inheritance tax, but it also, again, double tax. And I think there's another one on top of it because you liquidate stock options from either a 401k if you inherit your parents' 401k or something else. There's so much that they just add on to it if you inherit something.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, does anyone else have any final comments on Denmark? Or are we free to move on to the next topic?
Yeah, move on to the next topic. Unless anyone else has something to say.
Nothing heard? Time to talk about the Epstein files. After years and years and years, we finally got to see those transcripts. What do people think?
Well, we can all agree that the Clintons are fucked.
Well, so what I've been hearing is apparently most people are just sort of reacting it's Bill Clinton's pedo or something. Everybody's we knew that.
At this point, we already kind of knew. It ended up being nothing in there that we didn't already know. Except for we got to see some more names and we got to see more juicy detail.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Do you think he's going to get prosecuted? No.
No.
Exactly.
No.
I mean, I don't know what is the term for being open to seize legal action after a period of time. I forget that terminology.
Statute of limitations.
Yeah, I don't know what the statute of limitations are like, even if there is a limit to the statute of limitations on these sort of things.
Was the Epstein Islands what territory was that in? Because I think that would define the statute of limitations.
Was it in Australia?
So it is an American territory.
I thought it was in Australia or some shit.
Is an island in the United States Virgin Islands.
Right.
Okay. Depending on the statutes then it depends if they can try it.
It's also said that the Bidens have an island closer to it.
But if you own an island, it's going to be in the U.S. Virgin Islands, or it's going to be in a foreign country like Greece, though. There's not a lot of places where you can just buy islands.
But there's a little, not to change the subject, but there's a little funny irony with this compared to our previous subject, because if I remember correctly, we bought the Virgin Islands from Denmark.
Huh. That is a little funny.
So, funny coincidence. Have you heard of the Island Boys?
No.
No?
They're saying that they're the sons of Mr. Epstein.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is there any validity to that claim? Or is it just kind of now the Epstein lists are released or whatever the trying to get clout from it? Because there's people who are definitely trying to grift off of the papers being released.
I don't know that. But I can tell you, because I saw... Don't the Island Boys look similar to that fucking guy?
I don't
know,
but
we should probably avoid that level of swearing.
Yeah. take it easy on the swearing, bud.
Mm.
But what was I gonna say?
What were the other people on that thing?
No,
So,
Stephen Hawking.
Yeah,
Okay, so-
I heard the thing about Hawking, but I've also heard some people say it was fake.
okay, so the thing everybody's seen about Stephen Hawking, about him watching midgets try to write on blackboards that are too tall for them, that's fake. That is like photoshopped or whatever. It's not really there. He is mentioned.
I want to make sure, because that sounded both. That was one of those mental images that's too hilarious.
Kind of hilarious. Yeah, it's kind of hilarious, but like that's sort of how. I mean, that's the point against it. Basically, is like, but yeah, no, it's not real. But he is mentioned somewhere.
Yeah.
What was Bill Gates mentioned anywhere? Because I know he was a big, like everyone said, he was part of the conspiracy or something.
I only really skimmed the documents, but I didn't see Bill Gates anywhere. Like, I got bored after reading like the third transcript.
I would check, but I don't actually know where to find the transcripts.
I know some people were going through it with I think the command is Control F that brings up the search bar, and then they were just searching it name by name by name to see what all famous people they could find in there.
Bill Gates has not appeared when I Control F'd it.
Really? So Bill Gates is not in the thoughts yet?
Can you send me a link for where to read them?
It's also said that
it's still in news. Let me scroll up a little bit in news posts. I might be able to get it yourself.
Yeah, no, I had like I had it downloaded it. I just DM'd it to you.
Perfect. So, like I said, I know Stephen Hawking is in there with something weird.
What? Like,
I thought he was. Or no, here we go.
Joe Capper just said, what was Hawking even doing on the island? That is my question. It's like,
okay,
what
now here's the thing. Sorry, hold on.
Go ahead,
you at like 0.6 on page.
I'm wondering how a wheelchaired man can be able to do shit.
Yeah, well, a lot of it when it comes down to pedophilia is a lot about watching, I believe, because like there's some study I read about it a bit ago where a lot of it is just about the abuse dynamic with them. A lot of pedophiles are not actually attracted to children. People who commit child sex abuse, it comes from a place of wanting to show power. And also, all pedophiles actually have a choice. Most of the time when they were surveyed by psychologists, it was a 50-50 attraction to children, attraction to adults as well. Just wanted to throw that in there. Let me grab the study.
Anyway, coaching, you were going to say?
So I seem to recall hearing that he gets mentioned in something I'm not seeing, but I am seeing him mentioned in a request. So this is under requests for production. The sixth request is all photographs or video containing any images of you and the following individuals. To the extent you have such photographs and videos in their original native format, please produce them in that format, not a paper copy. A. Ghislaine Maxwell. B. Alan Dershowitz. C. Jeffrey Epstein. D. Andrew Albert Christian Edward, the Duke of York, a.k.a. Prince Andrew. E. Ron Eppinger. F. Bill Clinton. G. Stephen Hawking. H. Al Gore. I. Any of the individuals identified by you in response to interrogatory number 8 and number 14.
And I don't know what the rest of y'all think, but I think it's very safe to say that it was in Charles' best interest to finish throwing Andrew out of the royal family after this.
Oh yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Now, so here's the thing about Stephen Hawking specifically, right? From what I've heard, and this I believe I mentioned it somewhere on our server. Jeffrey Epstein apparently has some level of connection to a bunch of scientists because essentially scientists need money for research. They need funding. And Jeffrey Epstein had money and apparently, from what I have heard, enjoyed using that to hang out with scientists all the time as like an ego boost because he viewed himself as some sort of genius or intellectual. So he enjoyed
rich person thinking they're untouchable and better than everyone else wanted to hang out with.
Yeah, it made him feel smart to hang out with smart people. So he used his money to be able to hang out with scientists.
Apparently he wasn't smart enough not to get caught, so...
Yeah.
Well, he assumed he was powerful enough and enough of a megalomaniac that he would never get caught. Like
that is
But
usually...
he did, and he's dead now, but, you know...
I'm gonna see
Even though you have
find
the
this.
money, doesn't mean you're untouchable.
We're out of time, gentlemen. What were you saying, coaching?
I'm just gonna see if I can find this thing about Stephen Hawking. I think I'm remembering. So I'm gonna bow out for a couple minutes.
I'm glad Al Gore was name was cleared.
Hey, Watercube, I've been meaning to ask, not to change the subject, but what is your new PFP supposed to be?
It's the Hampton Roads flag.
I don't know what that's for.
It's the region of Virginia that got its own flag a while back.
Oh, lovely. Well, it looks very nice. I thought I'd ask because I thought it looked nice. I was just curious what it was for.
Would you like the full flag? It looks better because the circle's actually not in the center, but it's a bit off on the. I don't know what's called in Wexelology terms.
If you want to post it in the Stages text chat, that would be lovely.
Also talking about flags and stuff, I'm currently working on the membership card stuff.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. Just write the name there.
Yeah.
So is there a possibility that the document I got is not the full thing?
Slight possibility. I got it from this server, so I'm unsure.
Okay, so I am seeing other. So I found the thing I saw, and I'm seeing news websites reporting on it. There was an email. Hold on. Yeah,
Okay,
so there was an email. Shoot, I'm sorry. Right. An email from Epstein to disgraced British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell showed he was content for her to issue a reward, quote unquote, to any of Virginia Guffey's friends to counter her claims shortly after she filed a civil claim in the U.S. in 2015. The email read, "You can issue a reward to any of Virginia's friends, acquaintance, family that come forward and help prove her allegations are false. The strongest is the Clinton dinner and the new version in the Virgin Islands that Stephen Hawking participated in an underage orgy."
Oh.
But
no.
Well, here's the thing: is the way it's phrased, I'm not exactly sure what he's saying there.
I mean, yeah, it does seem like
it doesn't seem like he's actually saying necessarily that happened.
More like he's maybe trying to redirect or something.
Finding proof to disprove the claims?
Yeah, I mean,
like it could have just been brought up and it was something to be torn apart in cross-examination in the courtroom, possibly.
Right. Something to waste time and distract in the court, maybe. I don't know.
Because I mean, like, if I'm like at the center of some big, like, awful conspiracy thing like this, the things I would want to focus on is stuff that definitely didn't happen and that I can prove didn't happen, because that would make whoever's like arguing for stuff that did happen look worse.
Yeah.
But
so that could be what he's saying, but it's just worded in a way that's not clear.
You know, I think the main thing that's really causing all the conflict and confusion is how very untransparent this case has been over the years.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's ridiculous that it's taken this long for any names to get shown to us at all. Apparently there's going to be more stuff coming, I've heard.
You ready to submit FOIA requests?
I just want to see listing, however you pronounce her name, Maxwell's client list. That's the only thing
well, I mean, that's the whole thing. Is she got convicted of like conspiracy, right? But Conspiracy with who?
With whom?
I think that was what she got convicted of, right?
What? And even if it's not actually like some big conspiracy, I feel like the public still has a right to see that client list and see who exactly is so confidential that the FBI said that they're not at liberty to publish.
No, I'm sorry. She was convicted of trafficking, but nobody was like who she was trafficking them to isn't named or something like it's ridiculous. Like she's convicted of a charge that requires additional people to be involved, and then none of those people are named. Like it's absurd.
It's very, very fishy.
When in doubt, you could try to submit a FOIA request. If you fill it out properly, they'll probably bounce back with a reason why it wasn't listed, so that at least give a clue.
Anywho, any final thoughts on this?
I mean, not to be the Trump guy, but just like you guys saw that the media was trying to be like, "Oh, look, Trump showed up in the Epstein stuff." Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah, in the sense that a guy being interviewed was asked, like, "Did Trump ever show up?" No.
I'm still glad Al Gore didn't show up.
And then a bunch of anti-Trump news outlets were like, "Oh, look, his name shows up in the thing."
I'm so sorry. I gotta go.
Wait, I thought Al Gore was listed in the document.
He was asked, but the witness, said no. Al Gore was never there.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So he was mentioned, but it wasn't mentioned that he actually did anything. Got it.
No, same as Trump. It's like he showed up, they asked, and Al Gore did nothing, and I'm glad. I love Al Gore.
All right.
If I remember correctly, Al Gore ran against Bush in 2000, right?
Yeah, and lost terribly.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, was that the one with the Florida voting scandal as well?
Yes, I do remember the Florida voting scandal. I just couldn't remember who Bush was running against, or I wasn't certain. Because of course, I was born that year, so I wouldn't have a real good memory of it.
God bless Enron backing Bush all the way.
I keep forgetting that I'm like one of the oldest people here.
Wait, how old are you, Koshin?
Like almost 30.
Oh, you're a venerable elder.
I did not realize you were that old. Wow.
Which is scary. I mean, it's more than I keep forgetting that like a bunch of the people like around me in this place are like not even. Some of them like aren't even 18. It's just like it's just weird. Like get ready for that. By the way, when you start getting older, like suddenly realizing that you're like one of the oldest people in a room or something.
I mean, for the longest time since I went straight into industry after graduation, I was just used to being the youngest person in the room.
Yeah. Anyway, let's not. Yeah.
Now that we are getting close to the end of our hour, I wanted to make a closing statement by saying to everyone here, we briefly touched on it while we were waiting for you to come back, coaching, but as you know, Japan is suffering greatly as a result of a major earthquake that ravaged their country earlier this week on New Year's Day. We ask that you pray for the people in Japan, and if you have the resources available, to donate to organizations such as the Red Cross to help with relief efforts. It was a Category 7.6 magnitude earthquake, and the death toll currently is sitting at 126, and it also triggered a tsunami, so we're asking that you do whatever you can to help the Japanese in this time. And without further ado, would y'all please bow your heads? In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thy is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Thank you, and I would like to thank my co-host and everyone in the audience. You all are wonderful, and we'll see you next week on Monarchist Minute. If you want to follow us on social media or learn more about the organization, links will be in the description below as well as the timestamps. God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. Good night.